Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope you're doing awesome. I have another legend with me today. Oh my gosh, this guy's loaded with information. Every time I hang out with him, I learn something. So I wanted to make sure that we pick his brain today. Lorry Rifkin from Clarity Management. How are you today, sir?
Doing great, doing great. It's a Friday, the end of a long week, and I look forward to having some fun this weekend.
Awesome. You said you were going to do some fishing?
I don't sit still, so people in my network challenge me to sit
Oh,
on the bank of the Milwaukee River, and I'm going to sit there and go fishing. Doesn't matter if I catch anything.
okay.
The whole thing is, can I sit still for 1 hour?
Wow. So you're going to bring a lawn chair, something comfy to sit in at least?
No, I might not, because I'm going to find little nooks and crannies on the bank. There's always some place to sit. I'll bring a beer, I'll bring the dog, and I'll bring some worms, and I'm just going to sit there.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, tell me a little bit about Clarity Management before we jump into our topics today.
Clarity Management is a full service consulting company that does things. If a bank has a customer that's going to go out of business and they don't want to lose their money in their loans, they'll call me to come in there and try to fix it. I'll come in and help owners make more money, improve profitability. I'll put systems and procedures in place for fast growing companies so they have a structure to grow on. So it's a business consulting practice with a focus on improving profitability or bringing you back to good financial health.
Cool. So I also remember you talked about there was some CFO services that are involved in
Yeah,
that.
I'll do a fractional CFO, fractional COO. I've been a part-time CEO. So I'll call it, I'll fill a leadership position. It doesn't even have to have a title.
Okay.
I'll act as, and I use this word a lot in a different sense than many people. Many times I act as a mentor for the owner so
Okay.
they could gain control of their own business.
So when you use that word, I mean, what's the difference between like a mentor and a coach, let's say?
I'll look at it as look at a mafia family. The concierge is the number 3 ranking person in a mafia family. He's
Okay.
the only one who could tell the Don that he's wrong.
Oh, gotcha.
And he runs the risk if he screws up, he's shot. So a mentor wears the shoes of an owner and suffers the consequences or gets the gains of the opportunity with the owner and has done almost everything that he's asked the owner to do.
Okay.
So, for example, if an owner is going to go broke, I've had terrible financial times in my life. I could tell him what to do because I lived that. A
Sure.
coach might have never went broke. How
Sure.
could he tell the owner what to do? He's never sat in those shoes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's a great point. People ask me about my coaching practice, and I talk about, people say like, where do you go to school for coaching? And for me personally, I invested 30 years of starting, growing, and selling companies. So that's where I use my, that's where my experience comes. And it's just like you said, Lori, I asked the question, hey, if you were having brain surgery, do you want somebody that's read about it their whole life, or do you want somebody that's done it their whole life? And so you obviously have done it your whole life. Is it hard for the average entrepreneur business owner to hand over the reins in that type of situation to you?
Absolutely. That's why everyone has a core market. My market is a business owner who will let me tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. If I find that business owner, we have long-term relationships. And even sometimes they'll fire me, but they're
Sure.
still friends and I still talk to them. So that's the real thing. If you're fired as a coach or mentor and they still want to be your friend and talk to you,
Yeah.
it's more in the mentor quadrant then, because
Sure.
part of mentoring is wearing people's shoes, being in their environment, being their friend. Here's another critical difference, a key difference, I should say. I usually have an email address at the companies I work with.
Okay.
I would bet most coaches do not get an email address at the company they work with.
Yep.
I'm ingrained in their culture
Sure.
because I'm going to change their culture.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually have 2 clients that I have email addresses for from them because of the inner office, because of the representation. It obviously can complicate matters if an email comes from you from a different company. And so, yeah, I can see totally how that works. I think that it's one thing for somebody to say what they do and how good they are, right? I think that it's completely different when you have somebody else say it. And I was on your LinkedIn profile, and I wanted to read what Pat Miller said, because I was like blown away when I think about, this type of testimonial. And that's why, again, I wanted you on so bad to be on the show. I mean, so Pat Miller, an idea coach, says Lorry has x-ray vision. In a 15-minute conversation, he succinctly identified the core problem with my business and challenged me to fix it. It wasn't one of those problems that you ask for help on. It was one of those problems you cover up and nobody notices. Lorry brought it to the surface, pinned me down, and gave me the tools to fix it. I've never had an experience like working with Lorry, and I would recommend him when you need a truth teller to cut through the clutter in your head. So it's like, wow, that's so cool to have a third party, to share that. That brings up a bunch of stuff. I mean, what core problems in business? Are you focusing mostly on the financial side, Lorry?
No, actually, even though I'm a CPA, got a master's degree in accounting, I don't focus on that side. Now, I always bring it back to the financial results.
Okay.
And the accountants set the rules and book the transactions, but it's a rear view mirror process accounting. I'm a windshield guy. I'm creating realities that don't exist, but I do use a financial structure as the report card.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back to something Pat Miller said, because I didn't realize I had this. It is an x-ray. And now I realize I'm going to give you another difference between a mentor and a coach.
Sure.
Mentors have x-ray vision. And in 15 minutes, they could cut through all the BS.
Sure.
And that's not the value of a mentor, though. The value is then, once I cut through it, what do we have to build to have a foundation to have success after we get to the root problems? That's the value. The 15 minutes cuts through to the problem, but the real work is taking what the problem is and building it in a way. You're taking that problem and turning it into an opportunity that you build up and make money. And Pat Miller today, if you follow him, his business has exploded.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the other part of a mentor won't be asked. He didn't ask me for it. Yeah. Mentors see opportunities to create their own potential there.
Sure.
I sat with him in a golf cart. He didn't ask me for help.
He was captive.
Well, it's funnier because when you question people and you ask the same question two different ways in different times in a conversation, and the answers aren't the same, that's an indicator that something isn't right. The person doesn't have 100% alignment internally. And that's where a mentor picks that up instantaneously and starts questioning on that. And I've been trained in the power of questions. And when you do that, have that cascading waterfall of hard questions, you get down to a core answer pretty quickly.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And you touched on a bunch of stuff. There are a couple things that resonate with me is the defensive mechanisms that people have. I mean, for me as a coach, for me as a whatever, if I'm sitting with somebody and I see something and they've given me approval to, help them, come alongside them, it's crazy how defensive people get right off the bat. So how do you work with that? If, you point something out to somebody, their immediate reaction is going to be, I don't do that. Or they're going to be like, you do it worse than me. Or they're going to try and, do this one up type thing. In your mentorship, how do you kind of derail that defensiveness? How do you help people through that?
Because I'm a mentor and I wear their shoes, I was defensive to the max for 50 some years of my life. So I know the game.
Sure.
Here's when I put the defenses, when I let the guard down 1 or 2 notches, all this power from my mentors came in and started changing me. So I would tell that person point blank, I've been in your shoes. I know why you're being defensive. Let's just sit back a second and see what the real issue here, and let me help you, because I was defensive for 50 years and screwed up. A lot of times those people are younger and may say, don't waste the time I wasted. Sure. My runway is shorter now because I was defensive.
Right.
And I've taken that defensiveness. It will never go away. We can never change our core personality 100%. All I ask people is modify it 5 to 10%.
Sure. That's awesome. And that's the same message that we have when we teach DISC, because we know the DISC personality profile shows who you are as a human being, and you were built that way, you were created that way, nothing wrong with how you are. And so, but the other side of that is when you're communicating with somebody that's got a different personality than you, your goal is to make that modification. I think of it as a chameleon, where somebody is black, somebody's blue, and then you're communicating with somebody that's red. If you can start getting, to join those colors a little bit, you're going to have much more success. So behavior modification is really hard. So in 15 minutes, I mean, I was literally blown away in prep for this. I'm like, oh my gosh, 15 minutes. I mean, do you recall that 15 minutes of discussion with Pat Miller? And
I do.
But it's just crazy how quickly you can, identify that.
It's everyone's 15 minutes. It's the series of questions that happen when you meet with someone like that. There are different questions every time, but they're always probing questions that make you think. And I'll do things on, did you ever get a pair of glasses? Is this vision of this lens better than this vision? They're yes or no answers.
Yeah.
And it's like getting glasses. You just made me think of a new concept. When you go to get glasses,
yep,
they start with a universe of what you can see and narrow it down to a focus that's razor sharp.
Right.
That's what my questions do.
Wow. So do you have like a sample question or two that you would, if I was sitting with you and my business was struggling, or you were trying to uncover that, are there some, some universal questions that you start with, or are they so specific to each individual situation?
Well, let's look at if you're a failing business. The first question we're going to ask you is, do you want to fix this business, or you want to let it fail, move on with your life? That's really the first question.
Okay. Yeah.
And based on that answer, if you want to save the business, okay, let's figure out then what are the core issues here. Or it could be that we have no cash. We can't worry about core issues. We have to worry about making payroll for the next month, and then we can work on core issues.
Sure.
So really, I hate the term, but it is real. Peeling back the onion, getting to the core. And I'm working with people now where the core might be the owner is the problem. And so we might have to do a bottom up fix versus a top down fix.
Okay.
And so those questions bring that out. And plus something else, it's not only the questions, I let failure happen in front of my eyes to see where the weak spots are in the organization. So it's like stress testing the organization. I'll tell an owner to do something, watch how he does it. Then I'll get 3 calls from employees and saying, that was terrible. And then I said, now I know that we can't do it that way. Here's the system we're going to build to compensate for that.
Gotcha. Wow. And so then from those questions, it just keeps digging deeper and deeper. And we kind of have a similar situation. It's unique because I talk about the tough things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. It's easier for leaders to look outward and blame a customer, or blame the team, or blame a product, or blame the government, or blame the economy, or whatever. I've heard most all of the excuses. But it's really hard for somebody as a leader to kind of look inwardly and really realize that there's a flaw in me as a business owner, which is then, manifesting into some kind of issue outwardly. So I'm just curious, when you identify that, are most people pretty open to moving forward and trying to fix that? Or do you get stuck in that, blame game of that entrepreneurs sometimes get into?
Here's the thing. You got to add a time element. And I learned this the hard way. Again, I didn't get smart till I got old. There are times when that message will be received, and there's times it won't be received. You have to learn that. If it's going to be received, you have to immediately say, I will help you fix it, because too many people in our world, and I know you're a coach, but a lot of coaches say you have this problem. I'll tell people you have a problem, but I've already had the solution for them built. Sure. And I say, you have this problem, but I already thought about it. Here is the solution. Because when you identify a problem for somebody, the first thing they think is, holy shit, now I got to fix it. How am I going to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
If you identify a problem, then you say, here are 2 or 3 answers. We could start work on tomorrow. Yep. They'll listen to you more if you have an answer.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But it's also hard to create an answer sometimes without a vulnerable leader. And most leaders don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to talk about their weaknesses. You know, when I asked the question, if you could do one thing better, what would it be? You know, it's not a lot of people are all jumping up and down like, can't wait to answer that question. You know, let me give you 3 things I can do better rather than one. So you have to build that trust first. So how do you build trust with your, you know, prospects that eventually turn into clients? How do you see that working for you?
It goes back to the mentor. I've lived in their shoes. I tell them the stories that I've had to overcome.
Okay.
And I've been exceedingly vulnerable. In my class of my business consulting, you're not going to find one of my competitors who puts their vulnerabilities out there like I do.
Sure.
And so I am vulnerable. But being vulnerable allows me to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always said the cost of goods of sold of success is pain and failure.
Mm-hmm.
And when I opened myself up to pain, good things started happening. So I would give that owner example after example how open up. Or I said before, sometimes you have to fix things from the bottom up.
Sure.
You create a system that it's necessary for the owner to follow it.
Sure.
I have told owners, you're not allowed to come in a plant because you'll disrupt what I'm doing. And the answer is, they go, I own the place.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, you own it today, but if you don't change, you'll be gone tomorrow.
Sure.
They
Absolutely.
have to decide then.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's a similar situation that I had when I had 22 people on my team, and we had about 10 million in annual sales in my last company that I owned. And I could go anywhere I wanted except for the accounting room, Lori. They would not let me in there, you know? And it was like, because we'd be having a bad month and the whole sheet was red. And I said, you guys, all you got to do is click this little button right here and everything turns black. I mean, what's so hard about that, right? Quit having such a sour face. So they said, hey, you know what, please don't come in here. So I totally get that. But I tell you what, Lori, it takes time to really be able to understand that you're not the Superman. I mean, for me, I started a company and it was just me. And so I was doing everything, ordering, delivering. I was doing absolutely everything throughout the whole process. Well, then all of a sudden you start to grow and you get these people helping you and they kind of threaten you. You know, all of a sudden you can be a threat. They're doing it better than you. They're doing it different than you. You started with, you know, being in charge of everything. So is delegation, do you find that that's hard for the average entrepreneur that you're working with to start to delegate to others?
I'll give you an example for me. I never wanted to scale my company because I didn't want it. My personality is not good for delegation.
Yeah.
So I hesitated on that, but now I'm partnering with people, partnering on podcasts, partnering with potential other businesses.
Sure.
I realize you reach a point you can't do it all. And so I can make good money being a single shingle person, but I can't get scalability. To get scalability requires others, either partners or employees.
Right.
And so I'm taking personal risk. So again, I'm living it. So when I meet that owner and says, well, they just can't do it as good as me, I would say that's right, but the scalability overcomes the negative part of not doing it as good as you. And that's what I'm doing now. I have multiple podcasts running, multiple events. I'm not running them all myself.
Sure.
So yes, would I like to do it my way? Yes, but I won't be able to get there if I do it my way. I have to let other people be involved and come in.
Was that must have been hard for you to finally to come to that realization and let go?
It was very difficult, but here's the thing. It was finding the right partners, and it wasn't a search for them. They were in my network the whole time. I just didn't realize that I could use their power and they could use mine. It's a two-way street.
Sure. That's awesome. Yeah. And I know, like, even for me, I mean, I'm by design, it's just me because I mean, I have people helping me outside, but as far as another coach, I can't even imagine aligning with somebody that would have the same thought process that I had. You know, it'd be awkward if you were a business owner and you needed help and you contact me and we meet and we decide that we're going to do some work together. And then I say, oh yeah, by the way, Laura, I'm going to hand you off to John, you know, because John's going to take this from here. That would be really awkward to do. So I've by design said exactly what you just kind of, you know, I know that the scaling is limited to how many hours a day and a week and a month, but at the end of the day, I'd much rather have it that way. To me, it's way more authentic, again, just purely for me, than doing it in the other way of kind of scaling that. And then you just lose that, that touch that you have with the clients. So,
Well, you might not, Dave. Think about it this way. When
sure.
Apple grew, they lose the touch. No. So here's my little secret I learned.
Yeah.
Only in the last 12 months. If I'm creating a reality that doesn't exist, if I get followers and believe in that, they're natural partners. Because if they want, so here's the thing, when you create the content in your brand,
Mhm.
if people come to you, you're already over the first hurdle because they believe in you to begin with.
Sure.
You don't have to spend any energy on selling them.
Right.
You just got to spend the energy on developing the partnership.
Sure.
And so that's where I am. I never had the brand to draw in partners. Once I created the brand, the partners appeared out of nowhere. So part of that is your brand so powerful that you have people to want to follow and partner with you.
How did you so that brings up a great question. How did you create that brand for yourself?
I didn't. Remember that Pat Miller conversation?
Uh-huh.
When you help people, many times they'll help you back. I changed Pat Miller's business mindset in 15 minutes. He changed mine in 15 minutes. He gave me Lunch with Lorry. And he says, I'm giving you this under one condition. You have to use it to build a brand.
So what is Lunch with Lorry? How did that get started, and what is that?
Lunch with Lorry is about you. It's about the give. I wrote a course about networking called Networking from the Trenches. And I realized everyone's view of networking is always, what do I get out of it?
Right.
And I realized it's the opposite. Networking is how much can you give your network? And so Lunch with Lorry is the give. Okay. I take people out to lunch, ask them probing questions about their life, get their life story, and then I publish it on LinkedIn and say, this person is now part of the Clarity Management Network because I know them as a person and I trust them as a person, not because of their business. I don't ask any business questions in that meeting, but it's kind of funny, Dave, because 95% of the people come to Lunch with Lorry and they want to tell me about their business, and I won't let them tell me about their business.
That's funny. So I'm confused now because my Lunch with Lorry was virtual. There was no lunch. So you buy lunch for people. So I got gypped out of lunch.
You did, because we had to go to the virtual model, which is another thing. Here's the mentors and mentorship.
Yeah.
Pat Miller said, why aren't you doing this virtually? You can't do it physically anymore.
Sure.
That's the power of mentors. They make you do things because you don't want to fail them. So I turned it into a virtual. Yeah. Then he says, you're not using it as good as you should be using it. So now I launched virtual Lunch with Lorry events where you have to participate. So the evolution of an idea is the critical part. You need mentors along the way to nurture, kick you, and make you unleash the potential in you. So I had almost probably like 150 physical Lunch with Lorries of people. COVID came, it stopped. I couldn't go to a restaurant anymore. I started virtual ones, very slow. Then I said, this is crazy. I'm just going to go take it full blown. And now I'm hosting podcasts, virtual Lunch with Lorry events. And the funny thing is the events sell out.
Yeah.
I sold 2 events out in 48 hours. And now I got to do a third. I'm going, oh my God, I'm onto something. And people have to do homework to even come into the event.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Yeah. That to me, I mean, that's, I think for me personally as a coach, that's been my success is that accountability piece on the back end, because we've all sat into a seminar. We've all sat in some type of atmosphere where somebody's sharing their ideas with us. There's, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a live session, whatever it is. And we walk away from that and we tend to really forget and we jump onto our next, whatever our next thought is. And, and the curve of forgetting shows that, within 48 hours, we've lost 80% of what we learned. So the accountability piece, I think that's really I love that piece, is that repetitious of, hey, here's the list of things we were going to do. How are you on that? Because I know for myself, if I don't have somebody hold me accountable, a lot of that stuff doesn't get done. So I like that. I want to ask you a question because you kind of you sparked something. What's the difference between a good idea and a bad idea? I mean, you said about a good idea. What's the difference?
It's easy. Good ideas you could implement and run with. Yeah,
Okay.
it is easy.
Yeah.
I had lunch with Lori. It was a great idea.
Yeah.
I had to go implement it. Call people up and say you want to go to lunch.
Sure.
If you can't implement an idea, it's not an idea.
Sure. Okay. And so your lunch with Lori is obviously a good idea. Now, tell me a little bit about those networking events. How do you get involved? What's the plan?
Well, let me tell you how they started. How many people have been on Zoom meetings the last 3 months and absolutely leave with no connections, no follow-ups, no one-on-ones, no comments on LinkedIn? We have created a culture right now is you show up and that's all that counts, that your face is in the checkerboard square.
Sure.
The lunch of Lori concept, the virtual one, is how do we get people to participate? And there's a management guru who is not very popular, Lee Thayer, because he tells you you're going to fail because it's so damn hard to be a leader.
Sure.
One of his key things is he makes it necessary that you change. The necessary is if you don't change, you're not there. You're not part of the organization.
Gotcha.
And so I'm making it necessary that you participate to be able to come in these rooms. But it's amazing. I have 20 people. That means half the people know half the people in the room, but that means they get 10 new connections, 20 people.
Yeah.
And I have 2 events. I just gave people 400 new connections in their life.
Sure.
When I get in the thousands, I keep on running this, someone's life and many people's lives will be changed for the positive from those connections.
That's awesome. So how do you hold them accountable in those types of virtual situations?
You can't even come into it unless the first requirement is to come into the room. You have to connect with every other participant who's coming in the room.
Okay. And connect how?
They have to connect on LinkedIn because right now it's more business oriented. So they have to connect on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Second, forced participation. I believe there was 8 questions they had to answer as part of registration once you put in register.
Okay.
Now I have 2 participation things. The third is going to be that after the event is held, I'm going to do a post about it. You got to share the post and do your promotional thing in the reshare and say what you liked or disliked about the event. So now you got 3 participations. And again, I've been in probably around 70 Zoom meetings the last 3 months.
Yeah.
None of them have any of the 3 as a requirement.
Nice. That's awesome. And is there a cost to jump in on these?
Right now, no, but this is the thing is, as I see the demand, I'm going to monetize it to a degree to at least cover my costs because there are costs involved in running it.
Sure.
And this isn't the first pass of me doing this. I had a physical Cinco de Mayo lunch with Lori event planned before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And it was a cost to come, but that sold out in a day too.
Wow.
What I'm realizing, this is my own, you could have confidence, but you could have self-doubt. I didn't think I could sell out any event. And now it's proven wrong.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So how has networking changed for you on the last couple of years? What things have you seen changing, evolving, not working well? What's your take on networking?
Well, let's go back. Why, I would ask you, why do people network?
Sure. To grow I'm hoping to grow themselves and to grow their business and to help other people.
Okay, so once I figured out my definition of networking, mine was, I'm going to give to my network and not ask for anything.
Sure.
And the KPI of success of my networking is the number of one-on-one meetings my network gets me.
Okay.
So I looked at networking as a funnel for one-on-one meetings. And the one-on-one meeting, like I said, my whole marketing program is, we're not going to talk business at the first meeting. I want to learn about you. So I looked at this networking concept is, how do I build long-term relationship, not just for my business? People look at it just for your business. I get people to work on my house and property from my network. So now that's not for me to sell, it's to get good suppliers. Then I work on my networking to just help people. So I help my son and his friends from UWM because they don't teach networking in college.
Sure.
Out of that, I have gospel people out there spreading my word. So I look at networking as different than most people. Networking is to help my whole life, not just my business.
So for somebody that maybe is listening that either number one hasn't done networking, number two maybe they've been taking the wrong approach. I mean, I tell this story often, and I wish I could remember who it was, but somebody walked up to me at a networking event some time ago and handed me a half inch of their business cards and said, "Would you please hand these out for me?" I mean, I never met the guy before, had no clue who he was. I mean, don't even know if I could trust the guy, don't know anything about him. And for him, I think his goal was to deplete his cards as quick as he possibly could. I mean, to him, that was networking. I'm saying right, wrong, good, or bad. For me, that just was not, didn't leave a real good taste in my mouth. For people that are new to it or aren't necessarily doing it the right way, what are some tips that you can give them that they could implement right away at their next networking event?
Find the Don't talk about business, period. It's the number one rule. Do not tell people what you do.
Okay.
Tell them what you like, what your dreams are, what your hobbies are. Find a common ground. If you find a common ground, it's a lot easier to talk to people.
So how do you find common ground then? Let's personalize that for you, because that's a great concept. I think a lot of people are going to struggle with standing across from somebody at a after five event or on a Zoom call, whatever, and trying to formulate all this in your mind can just cause overload. So how do I find a common ground with somebody?
Well, first, if I wasn't as busy as I am right now, you would take my networking training course, but I'm going to give you one of the secrets is I have like 10 questions that you could use to ask people. So I would ask,
Okay.
So when you're not at this event, what do you do for fun?
Okay.
Now I'm going to learn their hobbies. Or
Sure.
tell me about your family. And if they have boys or girls, I have 4 kids, I'm going to find common ground. Find generic questions that start a conversation.
Okay.
And you notice I didn't ask, what do you do in your business?
Yeah.
I won't. If you don't talk about business, people lower their guard a little bit.
Sure. Okay. So, and this is an interesting question. There are certain personality types that really struggle with crossing that personal and professional line. So there are people that love to talk about their emotions, love to talk about their feelings, they love to talk about their family. They'll talk about anything that you want, like you and I. Now, there are that engineer type person, I'll call them, that there is a fine line between personal and business, and they don't like to cross that. Have you ever run into somebody that is hesitant to answer that question of, when you're not here at this event, what do you do for fun? Have you ever?
Absolutely, Dave. But here's the key. If there's 40 people in a room, I only want to find the 10 who will answer my questions.
Yeah, exactly. Great point.
Yep. Here's the analogy, and I think you and I talk about this: the cereal or cookie aisle in a grocery store. There's 100 different ones. They each have a different audience.
Okay.
Find your audience and ignore all the rest. When you go down the cookie aisle, you don't put 100 cookie bags in your cart. You put the one that you like. If that person doesn't want to talk to you, stop right there and move on to the person who will, because you only have an hour at that event. Find the 10 people who will talk to you. Ignore the other 30 who won't.
That's awesome. Such good advice that, I wish that people really could take to heart, because, I watch in networking events and the vast majority of people have no goals. They didn't really walk in with any type of, this is what I want to accomplish. They just kind of have that shot or that machine gun approach, where we're just going to go and, just whatever. I like that you're kind of still doing that, but you have a very specific idea that you're only going to get a few people, and that's really all you need. And you kind of have to sift through the right people and the wrong people. So that's pretty cool.
Well, one thing I want to tell for introverts, because no one believes I'm a closet introvert.
Okay.
If I was an introvert and go to a networking event, I'm going to give them this advice: work the walls, because you're going to find the fellow introverts here. Talk to them first,
Okay.
and then work your way towards the whirlpool. The whirlpool is a mass of people in the middle who you're afraid of.
Sure.
So start on the walls, slowly work your way to the center, and you'll get practice as you're doing it, and you'll be good at it then.
Sure. Wow. So start on the wall. So for introverts, start on the wall and then work your way in.
Yes.
And then do you suggest people have very specific goals for each event that they attend?
What did I mention before? The number one goal of going to any networking event is leave with at least one one-on-one.
Okay.
One-on-ones are the KPI success of networking. If you network and never get one-on-ones, you're not networking, you're wasting your time.
Sure. Well, that's really solid. And that's it's crazy when I talk about networking to people. I do sales training, and when I'm in with sales professionals, that's we talk about that from a prospecting perspective, and it's nuts how few people have. I mean, when we do poll questions on Zoom or raise hands in rooms, I'm going to say 80 to 90% of the people that I run into do not have a goal. And it's like, how do you possibly know if that was a successful event if you walk away with, it's all feelings then. And like, I feel like I made success, or I was successful. I think I was, I hope I was. I mean, there's just no KPI to measure that. So,
Well, that's kind of funny though, because I was in a networking Zoom call from a major organization in town, and the moderator had to leave for a second. So of course, because I have a big mouth, they put me in charge for a second. And I asked everyone this question: what is your goal for the number of new connections you want in the next week?
wow.
No one could answer.
Yeah.
And I said, my goal, I have that goal.
Yeah.
I want 50 new connections in the next 7 days.
Wow. That's crazy. And then what do you do with those connections, Lorry?
Which brings up the second part of networking. Don't network unless you have a brand. So I am going to spread my original content to all those new people and make them converts to my brand. And I won't be successful with everybody, and that's okay. I will be successful with some of them, and they'll be brand followers. And so part of networking too is, I would tell someone who's new to networking, don't network until you have a little better idea what your brand is. Then when you network, you have a purpose of selling your brand. And when you sell your brand, if it's a good brand, people will buy it. So come up with your brand. And what your brand really is in reality is, what's your differentiator?
Yeah.
Why are you different than everyone else? Everyone has a differentiator. And if you said to me, I don't have one, I'm going to say your differentiator is to be the same as everyone else. You have no difference.
Yeah. And that's so awesome, because I think back to Midwest Express Airlines, their brand was 2 across leather seats, cookies when you land, really high class meals, using expensive cutlery. I mean, the experience was their brand. And so, when people thought about Midwest Express, it was their cookie, so that's my question to my clients is, what's your cookie? What are you doing that nobody else is doing, so that you're able to, again, show, yourself above and beyond everybody in the clutter that's out there. So we're coming at it in the exact same way. That's awesome. So are you, as we start to come in for a landing here, Lorry, I want to just check in with you on LinkedIn. Is there anything on LinkedIn that you feel we are missing, or is there any tips or that you have for people that maybe they're, messing around with it? Maybe they spend a couple hours a week on it. I mean, what do you do on LinkedIn to really further your brand?
I promote everyone I meet, and that could include organization events. If I go on a Zoom call, I do a post how great it was. I mention all the people. I put a blurb in there for clarity, or my mentoring lunch with Lorry, and I put a ton of hashtags in there. So it's always about thanking, promoting the people I come in contact with. So the funny little thing on that is, I have become the unofficial PR arm for many organizations, because I have built my own personal machine to pound out posts very quickly with templates.
Okay.
That I'm first to market. So if you're going to go on LinkedIn, have content, it's standard business. First to market, great content, promote others, and out of doing that, you will create a brand that people will come to. So now that I've done that, and it does work, but I will tell you, Dave, 95% of people are too lazy to do it. Right. And that's why I'll give away the secret. Now I have a constant stream of people coming to me. They want one-on-ones. That's another Pat Miller thing. The only benefit of having a brand is people come to you.
Sure.
Without a brand, you're always searching for people.
That's
So if
awesome.
you're going to go on LinkedIn, come up with your brand, your differentiator, be consistent, write original content, and always thank the people you meet, and then do that for 3 years, like I've been doing it.
Yeah.
Finally, people will come to you.
Sure. That's awesome. And I think about, I'm in the habit right now of thanking somebody each week for something on LinkedIn rather than it being about me, rather than about promoting me. I'm trying to find things to promote, I love watching LinkedIn from a business perspective because the people that are great, that are filled with gratitude, you start to see their numbers go up, the engagement on the post goes up, and it just seems to be a real win-win situation. So, is there a specific goal and it can be a behavior goal, it can be an attitude goal, it can be a number goal. Is there any goal that you have for LinkedIn on a weekly basis that are trying to, I'm not going to stop until I get to this point, whatever that point is. Is there something like that for you on your week?
Yes, and my goal is I have multiple audiences that are not the same. My goal is every week to touch all those audiences.
Okay.
I have a business audience. I have an audience that wants a mentor and coach. I have an audience that wants some new information. So I touch in different posts all my audiences during a week. And it requires a lot of work because I have different audiences. I have clarity management. I have lunch with Lori. I have audiences of sharing information and knowledge.
Okay.
I do a podcast every week with Lori Hybe that we alternate. 1 week is on a business topic, 1 week's on a marketing topic.
Okay.
So that's a different audience than my true clarity audience, which is different than my lunch with Lori audience. So
Sure.
you have to, if you want to have audiences, you have to touch base with them every week. And that's a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, hey, I see the landing strips right in front of us. So my one last question to you, Lori, is what's one thing that most people don't know about you that you feel comfortable sharing?
But one of my hobbies is a real strange hobby. I love metal detecting for gold nuggets in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
Now, does it have to be the Mojave or can it be out in your backyard?
No, it has to be Mojave Desert because there's a lot of gold mines there. And the thing is, this is the funny part, Dave. This is my life. I never find them, but I always want to go. The hunt is more powerful than actually getting the reward.
Okay. See, now I'm completely different because earlier this morning I was out morel mushroom hunting in my woods and I didn't find any. And it wasn't I was there for the kill. I wasn't there for the experience. So different people have it different. So it'd be kind of fun for you and me to be in the middle of the Mojave Desert and you're just happy being there. And I'm like, dang it, we got to catch something here, Lori. This is ridiculous. So different people do it differently, right?
I mean, I do want to find something, but the thing is the experience. So one last question reverses on you.
Yeah.
What's more important to you in life, the journey or the rewards?
Oh yeah, totally. I think of it, what's more important, the journey or the destination? Half of me loves the journey because I do ride my motorcycle and I love to get lost. So that journey is really important. When there is something that when there's something at the end of the rainbow though, Lori, I'm so competitive that I gotta find that. So
okay, here's the lunch with Lori question. It's A or B. There's no in between.
I know, right?
You have to close the show.
I know, right?
Audience, is it the journey or the reward?
It's the journey. It's the journey then. It's definitely the journey. But no, it is. I gotta just leave it at that because you're gonna say no buts. So yeah, it's the journey.
Yeah, so and that's why the hunt for the gold nugget is the journey.
Absolutely.
And when I realized the journey was more valuable than the reward, my life changed for the positive.
That's awesome. And I just, as we close this out, I think it's really helpful for people listening to understand that, there is no right or wrong answer to what we've been talking about. And we are, Lori and I are different in certain things. And we just showed that. And I don't feel like I'm superior to him. And I don't feel like I'm inferior to him. And I think that's part of the big chunk of why I'm doing this podcast is there's the personal side of business that can really, it can help us or it can, be a detriment. And so I really value your time, Lori, and pointing out so much stuff. It's great to, be on different sides and still be able to look at it and not have to be in conflict with each other, because I know that we have some, different ways that we look at it, and neither one's right or wrong. And we just proved that there's two ways to look at it, but it probably boils down to where we are a lot more similar than we might appear on the surface.
You are so right. I would tell people, you don't have to agree with me, you don't have to like me, but one thing you should do is take concrete steps every day to chase your dreams.
Absolutely.
Because that's the only thing I really offer people, is the challenge to take the steps to chase their dreams. It's not my dreams, it's your dreams. Right. And I challenge you to take those steps. And if you do that, you're going to be better for it. And I'm better because I helped you.
Absolutely. So if somebody wants to get on lunch with Lori, if somebody wants to learn about the networking from the trenches, or they just want to reach out to you, what's the best way for people to connect with you, Lori?
To email me. If you could somehow put my email up, because that's the best way. Email me. You might have to wait a little bit to get a one-on-one, because I have like 30 or 40 people waiting.
Nice.
But if you could get on, I'm going to continue my events. I'm pretty sure come to an event and you'll get to know people in my network and me.
And it's Lorry, Lorry, Rifkin, Rifkin. That's how you find you on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
What's the best email address for you? And we'll put it in the show notes, but just for any of the audio.
It's L, the first initial, my first name, Rifkin, L Rifkin at ClarityMGT.com.
Awesome. Well, hey, Lori, this has been fun, man. The 45 minutes just flew by. Thank you so much for all your feedback, your wisdom. I wrote a bunch of notes for myself, so I'm going to be challenged here for the next week to kind of really think about what we talked about and apply this. I try desperately to walk away with things every time I talk to you that I can implement into my life, and I appreciate that. And again, I'm excited to see where your groups go, and hopefully you'll get back to lunch with Lori, in real, because I still feel like I got gypped out of lunch. So.
Well, no, we're going to do that. Actually, we're going to. I had a version of. I bought a house on the east side. Okay. My concept was cocktails with Lori on Friday. I have a giant deck.
Oh.
I really wanted people to come over and have interesting conversations. So this is going to go on. When things clear up a little bit, there'll be lunch with Lori physical events, and the goal is just to meet people who are interesting.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to that. And if anybody listening wants to hang out with Lori, just find him on LinkedIn, email him. He'll be happy to help. He's been a wealth of knowledge for me. And again, I appreciate it. So until next time, appreciate it. Thanks again, Lori, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.